I was going back through my Rolodex to see what videos I've done and haven't done, and I've never done a video comparing the F350 dually to the F450. And in today's video, we're gonna do that. And look who I got here. I got Ken.
How you doing, guys?
And where are we at?
And we're at Ken Garff, West Valley, Utah.
Ken Garff.
Yep.
Ken Garff
Ford store. Yep.
Okay. So are these two trucks available here?
These two trucks are available. This one's a used truck, the blue one, and the white one is a brand new Platinum 24.
Okay.
Available.
Somebody wants to contact you over here. What's your number?
Yep, my number's 801-694-5269. That's my cell. I can reach you anytime.
My man. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
So here's a loaded question. Should you get the F450 or F350 dually? That is really a hard question to answer because one size truly does not fit all. Now, most people are going to say, well, no, duh, you just get the F450. And you might be right because this truck has a lot of benefits over the F350. But yes, that F350 has some great advantages too. And we're going to unpack it. Now, luckily, both of these trucks are Platinum, so when we go to look at the Payload, this is as apples to apples as it can get, guys. Super excited. Now, let's just get the front ends out the way. If you are looking at a Platinum, they do give you the projector style headlights on these trucks. You get the satin finish here and here, and they give the dualies a unique front grille. So you don't normally see these grills on the single rear wheels. On the front end, you do have the recovery hooks right here, front cameras, and it's pretty much the exact same on the F350. Let's talk about the wheel and tire setup next. When you're looking at the F350, they are going to give you a 17-inch wheel. You cannot upgrade this size. The tire size is an LT 245 75/17, and this is a Michelin tire, which is a good tire, and I'm willing to bet you that when you go to replace these, you're going to be a lot happier compared to these. This is a 19.5-inch wheel wrapped in a Continental tire. These are basically commercial grade tires. The tire size on here is 225/70 19.5. Now, how much capacity does this tire have? Well, this is a G-rated tire, and it's going to have 3,970 pounds of capacity at 110 psi. Out back is 3,750 pounds. Let's check out what it is for the F350. Load range E tire, and the capacity is 3,195 for single, 2,910 for dual at 80 psi. So less tire pressure means probably a lot better riding truck too. So just keep that in mind. Now, I didn't point this out, but let's go ahead and do a quick count. You have 2, let me just back up a little bit, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. On the F450, you do have a 10 lug. On the F350, it's going to be an 8 lug. Okay, so already you have a more overbuilt axle right out of the gate, and you have a more overbuilt tire. So when it comes down to payload, when it comes down to towing heavy, this truly is the truck to have. And we haven't even discussed these fender flares yet. Now, obviously you guys can tell that that F450 has some big fender flares that this F350 do not. Let's go ahead and talk about that for a second. This is probably one of the main reasons why people buy F450. Why front track? If you've ever been on a very narrow road or need to make a U-turn, this truck can do it on a dime, 100%. And that is not available for this F350 dually. And most people will agree the F350 dually has probably one of the worst turning radius. Just being honest here, they have a really tight one here, and this is why a lot of guys have gone from F350 dually to F450 because they like the idea of how nimble this truck is going down the road. I will discuss the powertrains here in a second because there's actually a really big advantage for the F350 that you probably haven't thought about. Now, out back, wheel and tire setup is going to be the same. They do provide a steel wheel out back on both trucks, and there's no way to upgrade that, unfortunately. Now, as far as the suspension goes, if you look at the leaves on the F350, they do look very similar to what's on the F450, and I'm willing to bet you there's no difference. Now, you can probably see the bump stop right there. That's the bump stop. Sometimes there's a difference there. And actually I don't really see that there is a difference on those. So the bump stops are the same, and I'm willing to bet you that if there is a difference in the leaves, it could be the spring rate, but I have not read where they have done any changes on the suspension for these trucks. And remember, the F450 is derated down to 14,000 pounds, so this is not a true cabin chassis truck. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, the leaves look exactly the same, and there's really no big difference out back on the suspension. Same thing goes on the front suspension. Now, if you look under here, this is the rear for the F350 dually, and here it is for the F450. So you guys can see this does have a more robust rear end, and it has some cooling elements as well. So on the F450, you cannot change the gearing on this truck. You only can get a 430 rear end. That's it. The lowest gearing you can get on an F350 dually is a 410, but it comes standard with a 355. Let's discuss that. One of the biggest advantages to the Ford F350 dually is that you have 3 powertrains available. On the Ford, you only have 2. Now, as you heard, that 430 rear end is the only one available for the F450. So when you're driving down the highway, not towing, you're going to be running at a higher RPM simply because. That's where I think the F350 dually makes a lot more sense for people. If you plan on daily driving your truck, the F350 dually might be a better buy for you. Now, as I said, you have 3 powertrains on the F350. The standard one is going to be the 7.3 liter gas engine. Now, why would anyone buy a gas engine on a dually? It's because you need payload. In order to have the most payload for this truck, you have to have a gas engine. So when you see those advertisements on Payload, it's because it has the gas engine. So with that being said, if you do plan on using your truck for a bed camper or anything like that, that's where the Ford F350 comes to play, because this truck has that option to get the max payload. On the Ford F450, you have the standard output and high output power stroke. As I said earlier, 14,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating is going to limit what this truck can actually have for payload. If you were to add another 800 pounds to that number, you'd have more payload. So with that being said, these power stroke engines, this is the standard output. That's going to have 475 horsepower, 1,050 pound-feet of torque. And this truck's going to have 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. You can get either or engine for either truck. Doesn't matter which one you get. So the high output is available for the F350. Now, as I said earlier, you can get a 355 rear end on this truck. Actually, I might have said this truck came standard with a 410. It comes standard with a 355 with the diesel. If you were to get the gas engine, you have the option to get a 373 or a 430 rear end. So the benefit of having the F350 is if you don't tow a lot, or if you're just towing a few times a year, I mean, this truck has a towing capacity probably still over 30,000 pounds. I will show that to you guys here in a second, but you literally can have a higher gearing out back, lower RPM, which means you're going to get better fuel economy. So there's no reason to buy this truck if you're not towing heavy or hauling heavy. It might make more sense just to get the F350. Now granted, as I said, you're going to lose that turning radius, you're going to have lost a 10 lug hub, all that good stuff, and a commercial tire and wheel. But again, all the stuff that I just mentioned is going to weigh this truck down even more, which means it's going to affect the payload. Now, I did mention it earlier, the F450 does have larger front and rear brakes compared to the F350, so just keep that in mind. Let me show you guys one thing on the interior, and then I'll show you guys the numbers on the door. I always show this in all my videos. This is one of my favorite things about the new Ford trucks. They have these general measurements that shows you the temperatures in one spot, and then here are your diesel measurements. Now, here's one thing that F450 does not have. And this is a big deal for me. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This is a big deal. Tire pressure monitoring system. If you would like to have this on the F450, well, it's just not available. So if you go to My View and you hold down, you can check and uncheck what you want to see in here. And nowhere in this menu is tire pressure monitoring system. So that is an unfortunate thing about the F450 is you don't have tire pressure monitoring system, and that's okay because I mean you have the most robust tires you can pretty much put on a truck, so I guess they didn't feel the need to do that. Although I will say 110 PSI, that's a lot of PSI. Now before I show you guys the payload and the numbers on the door, let me show you guys some of the pricing for F450 and F350, and then I'll show you guys the towing capacity. Then I'll pretty much end off the video showing you the numbers on the door here. And then I'll let you guys know what truck you should get. Now, considering the F450 Limited, the price on this truck is $104,030. It comes standard with the high output Power Stroke. Same story for the F350 Limited. So the price difference between these two trucks is $3,750. Now, every other trim level comes standard with gas engine for the F350. Remember, the F450 is going to come standard with the standard output Power Stroke starting from XL up to Platinum. Now, with that being said, this is the price for the Platinum F450, $93,535. Back over to F350. Now, not considering the gas engine, the price difference is $1,895. And if you consider the other trim levels, it's around $2,000 more for the F450. As far as towing goes, I'm just going to point out the diesel, so all the gas engines are down below. So be sure to pause it for those. Now, for the F450 for conventional towing, 30,000 pounds, okay? Now, for the 6.7 standard output, you guys can see you have two axles for the F350 dualies. Now, we're just looking at four-wheel drive, so 27,000 pounds. And you do pick up a little bit more with that 410 on your high output Power Stroke. Now, down below, this is going to be for your fifth wheel prep package. Here are the towing numbers for the F450. Okay, this is standard output, and then high output is right here. And for the F350s, remember the 355 rear end. So you guys can see those numbers there. And then here are the numbers for the 410. So you do pick up slightly more. So even with the 355, I mean, you have so much towing capacity. And remember that 10 speed is going to do most of the work for you because the steps are closer. So just keep that in mind when you are picking your truck. Here are the numbers on the door for the F350. So your gross axle rating out front is going to be 5,990 pounds. The rear is 9,900 pounds. And 14,000 pound gross fuel economy rating. And just take note of the wheels, 17 by 6.5 wide. And up here, this is the payload, 5,246 pounds. You guys see the tire pressure, 75 up front, 65 in the rear. Let's check out the F450. The front gross axle rating on this truck is going to be 6,000 pounds. The rear is 9,900 pounds with a 14,000 pound gross fuel economy rating. These wheels are 19.5 by 6 wide. All in payload is 4,739 pounds. So as I said earlier, these trucks are pretty much identical. Now this truck does not have a sunroof. The F350 does, but this truck does have that guy right there. So that's gonna pretty much take away from the payload too. And as I mentioned, when you have a more robust wheel and tire, heavier front axle, heavier rear end, bigger brakes, right? All these things are going to come off of your payload. And because, as I said earlier, this truck has the exact same gross fuel economy rating as the F350, which means it's going to have less payload because it's going to weigh more on the curb. So I hope you guys like the video. I definitely think that if you are in the market and you do a lot of full-time travel, I think I would just go ahead and pick the F450 100%. If you're doing a lot of towing, a lot of traveling under load, this is the truck you want to get. That wide front axle is just absolutely amazing. However, but if you need the payload, this is the truck you want to buy. If you don't need that lower gearing and you're going to be doing a lot of highway driving unloaded, this is probably the better buy. And if you need a gas engine, you can get that with the F350 dually, but not on this truck here. Be sure to check out Ken Garff's inventory here. I got Ken right here again. Thank you, bro. Thank you, man. This has been a video I've been wanting to do here, so I appreciate you helping me out with that.
Now, there's quite a bit of difference in the two.
Oh, absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely. See you guys soon.